imagined, and he was expected to be in the hospital for 2 weeks, but instead he's already back home in Arkansas healing, and that is because so many people were praying for him. Maybe even some of you were praying for him, and our family is so grateful. He still has a long way to go, but this step was very successful. So while I was gone, I spent some time reading a couple of different books and listening to a podcast called The Bible for Normal People because, hey, I'm a normal person. It might be helpful for me. And one thing that helps me when I listen is to keep my hands busy. So today we're going to use something to keep our hands busy. So if you're a kid or you like things that kids like, we're going to work on something while I talk. So you can either come up to this table and I have Play-Doh, or we can go to the table with Pastor Carl, and I am going to have you guys make something specific, okay? So if you're at this table doing Play-Doh or the other, I'd like for you to make a tree. I'd like for you to make a tree with your Play-Doh or with markers or crayons or whatever. A tree. A tree. We're making a tree. I want to see what your favorite tree might be. Maybe you're still thinking about Christmas. Anybody here still thinking about Christmas trees? No? We're over Christmas trees. Anybody here dreaming about palm trees and the beach? Yes, me too. I like that tree. Maybe a spring tree with buds and leaves. Whatever it is, I want you to use your listening ears, keep your voice off, and work on your tree while I'm talking. Hey, Rhea. Hi, Reen. How are you guys? I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. Good to see you. Okay, so we're making trees. You can either draw a tree if you want, or you can use Play-Doh. All right. So all that listening and reading that I did on my trip brought up a couple of questions that I think you guys can help me with. Somebody help me. What's this? Say it really loud, Aubrey. It's a Bible. Okay, but what about this? It's a Bible, but it looks totally different. Wait a second. What about this? What about this one? But wait, this one has Legos. What is it? All? Okay, but they don't look anything alike, right? So what's the difference? Somebody tell me. They're all different. What? Okay. Okay, so tell me what you mean by that, Milo. Milo says they're all a different Bible. What do you mean by that? Maisie, what do you think you mean about that?
I think they tell the same thing. In each story, they tell the same thing, but they're said differently.
Okay, so they tell the same thing, the same story, but they're said differently. What do you think, Reen?
I think some of them are like for kids, some are for adults, and some might even be in different languages.
Oh, did anybody hear what Reen said? He said some are for kids, and some are for adults, and some are even in different languages. All the ones we have here are English, but you're right. You're right. What do you think, Henry?
They're all unique in their own way.
They're all unique, kind of like people, right? They're all unique in their own ways. So, the covers are all different, but about 1,700 years ago, a bunch of really smart people got together to try to organize the people who were following Jesus. And they decided that one of the best ways to do that was to take all the scrolls and writings about him and the people who came before Jesus, and they came up with the best versions, right? They put them all together in a way that made the most sense, a way that tells the story of Jesus, who he was, how he came to be, and they sat down with all the different books and scrolls and all these things that were inspired by God and written by human authors, and then they narrowed it down to 66 books, written by 40 authors over roughly 1,500 years on 3 continents. Did you guys know there's 66 books in here?
Yeah.
Well, you did. 66 books in here. So let's talk about this. Is it a book or is it a library?
It's a library.
It's a library, right? Now, the original first version of the Bible was written in Greek and Aramaic and Hebrew. Raise your hand if you speak ancient Greek or Aramaic or Hebrew. Nobody? None of us speak Greek or Aramaic or Hebrew? So if we had an original Bible, it wouldn't really do us very much good, right? No, it wouldn't help us at all. So today, Reen, they print the Bible in, do you know how many languages?
160?
More. Go north of that. More.
1,200.
Leo's the closest so far.
1,000.
He went a little high. There are 730, as of the end of 2023, so a month ago, they print the full Bible in 736 languages. So to do that, you have to translate the old words, the old Greek and Aramaic and Hebrew, the words that were inspired by God, and they were given to us by those first authors into a language that today's people understand. Here's a fun fact about me. When I went to college, which was a long time ago, in a land far away, I got my degree in Spanish medical translation, and that means that I would help people who only spoke Spanish talk to a doctor or nurse or pharmacist that only spoke English. Does that make sense? I would make it so that two people who couldn't talk to each other, that none of their words matched up, I could help them understand each other. And one rule of translating things is you do not translate word for word. If you do, it won't work because they say things differently. So, for instance, in English, we would say, I'm hungry. Does that make sense to you? You understand what that means? Oh, okay. But in Spanish, they would say, tengo hambre. And what does it mean? Okay, but it literally means, word for word, it would be, I have hunger. If somebody came up to you and said, Henry, I have hunger, would you think that was weird? Maybe a little. You would be like, that's a weird way to say that. So instead of translating word for word, I would translate thought for thought, and I would say, if they told me tengo hambre, I would say, I'm hungry. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the translators of the Bible had to do something similar. They would translate thought for thought instead of word for word. But sometimes, some languages don't always have words that have the exact same meaning than the original writers wanted to express. Sometimes they just don't match up. And that means sometimes we have to do a little bit of work to understand what the original meaning of the story was. Sometimes we have to dig a little bit deeper. So each one of these versions of the Bible, these and the other like 720 versions, they have a little bit of something different. It's another attempt to translate the Bible in a way that works best for one group. Like Reen said, they might be made for kids, or they might be made for adults. Or as words change, sometimes they will produce a new version with more modern or more common words. And that's why we have so many different versions of the Bible. And while the words might be a little bit different, the stories are the same. Maisie, were you the one who said that? Same story, different words? What we have here is our library. It's a history. Is it of one person? No. It's a ton of people and whole communities. It's a masterwork of literature. Did you know there's poems and songs and stories about love and war and heartbreak and pain? Did you guys know that? Yeah. And it all starts out with a tree. Are you guys still working on your trees? You got it done? Okay. Well, I need to take a picture of it later, so make it back again. Okay, keep going. I'm almost there. The first people in the book are named, somebody tell me, who are the first people in the book? Henry. Adam and Eve. Reen, where do they live?
In the garden of...
You're so close. Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden. And what was in the middle of the garden? Yes, you're right. It was a tree, the tree of knowledge. And what happened when you eat the fruit? You get knowledge. But it was things that they didn't need to know, some things that only God knew. And so when Adam and Eve ate from the tree, all of a sudden they knew they were naked. Ah! And they felt ashamed and they hid from God. And that was the first sin, the first time people did something they weren't supposed to do. Was it the last time people did something they weren't supposed to do? No? Reed did something he wasn't supposed to do? Just an hour ago? Man! Anybody else do something they weren't supposed to do ever? Milo? Holden? Oh, man. We all do things we're not supposed to do. Now, let's jump to the end of the Bible. In the last book, the book of Revelation talks about a tree too, the tree of life. But this one heals. It has enough fruit to feed everyone, and it has leaves that heal. Do you think the leaves are Band-Aids? I think that'd be really cool, right? Okay. So if the first tree that we talked about first was forbidden, and it caused problems, this tree is the solution. Just hang on to it, okay? So what do these trees have to do with kids living in North Dakota? Do you guys know that most of these stories in this library took place a long time ago? Do you guys know that?
Over 2000.
Yeah. And they took place in a place that was far away, right? It wasn't here. Was it in Bismarck? No. And most of the stories they're about a lot of them are about adults. Are you an adult? Oh. But sometimes there are stories about people who've been hurt. Have you ever had your feelings hurt or had been hurt? Yeah. Anybody ever been afraid? There's stories about fear. And there are funny stories. Does anybody like to laugh or have jokes? Okay. So even though those stories are about people who lived a long time ago and far away, people really haven't changed that much. All those people had moms and dads. Raise your hand if you have a mom or a dad or a cousin or a brother or a sister or a friend or a neighbor. We all have those. So we can still recognize our problems in their stories. So what do you think it means? That slide says, our story is between the trees. What do you think? Any ideas? In a second. So when we say our story is between the trees, we can find a story that sounds like us somewhere between the beginning of the Bible, the tree of knowledge, and the end, the tree of life. So somewhere between the beginning and the end of this library, we can find a story that might give us hope, or make us laugh, or make us cry. It might even give us an idea to help us solve a problem. But I guarantee you, between the covers of this library, you'll hear a story of a God who loves us and he wants the best for us. A God who wants us to live together and work to help others. All right, let me see the trees you've been working on. Anyone have one they're really proud of? Nice.
That's a nice tree, Milo.
That's a good one. Mitchell, let me see. You're still working a little bit. Awesome, Murphy. Okay, so here's the plan. After our song and our benediction, I'm going to take a picture, and we are going to make a gallery out in the hallway upstairs in the education wing of us with our trees. So if you don't run off after we get done, and we will take your picture and print those pictures off, okay? So hang on to it, and we'll take your picture after the song. So before we do that, though, let's pray. Will you repeat after me, guys? Dear God, thank you for the Bible that helps us to know more about you and your people. Help us to find our story between those two trees. Help us recognize where we can do your work here on earth. Amen. All right.